Yeehaw! Larken Rose here doing a video about the flat earth thing. Now, I know what a lot of people are going to say, oh, why would you entertain that? Why would you let anybody bring up that? It's just a distraction. And I totally sympathize with the people who say that, who say it's just a distraction, it's a stupid, ridiculous thing, you can't talk people into it, whatever else. And I totally sympathize with that, and there are a couple reasons I'm doing this anyway. First of all, I think there are a lot of people who are simply ignorant. There's a difference between ignorance and stupidity. And most of us are ignorant about most things, myself included. And so it's no sin to be ignorant in some field of thought. And it doesn't necessarily mean the person's stupid. There's a difference between your brain doesn't work and your brain doesn't have certain information in it. So there's a lot of well-intentioned but misguided people who are being duped by these distractions and silliness, whether or not it's some intentional plan to distract people and make people believe stupid stuff, which it very well may be, or if it's just other ignorant people passing it on. So there's a reason to, I want to help the people who are just being duped by something that sounds interesting and they don't know enough to see through it. But more than that, the main topic here isn't really even the shape of the planet. It's the issue of understanding versus believing, because most people and most things they know, they don't know it. They believe it. And there's a big difference. And the people who believe things assume that everyone else just believes things. They don't think in such a way. They're not used to thinking in patterns that they even know what it means to know something, to prove something. When most people say, this proves it, they mean, I saw enough confusing stuff that I'm persuaded. In mathematics and science, proof actually means something specific. It means logically ruling out any other possibility. It doesn't mean persuading somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing. Incidentally, if anybody posts memes or videos or anything under this in either direction on this issue under this, I'm going to delete it. If you can address if you go and rants about anything not related to what I'm actually talking about in this video, I will delete that too. Use your words, whether you're flat earth or round earth, use your words to actually explain things relevant to what I'm going to be talking about. Otherwise, it's going to get deleted because so quickly this turns into a giant pile of noise. Most of what passes for education is memorization. It's not understanding. It's people hear crap, they memorize it, they write it down on a test, they get a good grade. My father was a mathematics and science teacher for a bazillion years. And I know flat earthers will say, oh no, he's in on the conspiracy. I bring it up because he taught in a very unorthodox way. And it's funny because one year he was voted the most students voted for him as their favorite teacher, and the most students voted for him as their least favorite teacher, and for the same reason, which is he didn't teach the way most education teaches, which is you sit there, I'll feed you stuff, you memorize it, you barf it back out on a test, and I'll give you a good grade. He taught people to actually think. He said, here's what we're trying to figure out. I'm not going to tell you how to figure out. You have to figure out how to figure it out, and then figure it out. And he would, help along the way and give hints and stuff, but it was actually creative thinking. And the people who were used to just memorizing and spouting things back, a lot of them were uncomfortable in the class because, this isn't what I'm good at. So they're the ones who didn't like it, and the ones who actually liked to think and figure things out loved it because, wow, I actually understand this because I made it my own, and I actually looked and figured out how, the evidence and the logic, and yeah, now I really know what it is. Most of what people know is not about them knowing anything. They took things on faith and they memorized it and spouted it back. Now, I'm going to say two of the nicest things I can say in favor of flat earth people, the people who believe the earth is flat. If you originally believed that it's spherical because somebody said so and for no other reason. In other words, if you took it on faith that it was spherical and then later you said, maybe I shouldn't have, maybe I should question that, good. I'm glad. I want you to be able to question everything, and especially if it was a belief for you, not an understanding. If it was a belief for you, I'm glad you doubt it. However, jumping to a different belief is not an improvement. The improvement over belief is actual understanding. Now, now I'm going to pick on the round earthers, because most of the people who say, of course it's spherical, of course it's round, everybody knows that, they don't know how to prove it either. Most of them took it on faith. And so they're just repeating their faith. Now, most of them may have more sort of anecdotal evidence implying it and indicating it, so they have reason to believe it, but they've never bothered to look into the geometry or the physics or anything and say, well, can I actually prove it? And I like to, sometimes I would, in conversations, go to the round earthers and say, can you actually give a geometric or mathematical proof that the earth is spherical? And most go, no. And that's fine. You're allowed to be ignorant of that. Most people are on both sides of the argument. They don't really know how to prove it either way. They have lots of reason to, well, there are flights over there, and we have satellites and GPS, and so they have this collection of stuff that to them indicate something, but that is not what a scientific proof actually is. And so today I'm going to give an actual proof that the earth is not flat, and I mean a proof in the scientific sense, and I'm not going to rely on anything you have to believe NASA for, or textbooks, or anybody else. You believe your own eyes, and that's it. And because it's not that difficult to do if you actually know how to do it. And so many people, again, it's people projecting their own ignorance when they say, you just believe what NASA says because they did. What they're saying is they took it on faith that it was spherical when somebody told them that, and they're assuming everybody else did too. So they say, well, if you never looked into it, you've never researched it, you've never blah, 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 blah. What they mean is they never thought about it. They never understood it. They never examined it. And they're projecting on everybody else the same thing, which is amazingly arrogant to say, and people do this in science all the time when they say, there's no way to know that. Okay, we have a big rectangle, and this one is 87 feet long, and that side is 13 feet long. What's the diagonal? Well, there's no way to know that without measuring it. Well, thanks to Pythagoras, there's a very easy way to know it. But if you don't know how to know it, okay, that's just ignorance. But if you proclaim, nobody in the world knows how to do this, how to figure this out, because I don't, that is ignorant and arrogant at the same time. And what flat earthers, I constantly see them doing is, there's no proof of this. It's all just theory and conjecture. What they mean is, they don't understand the proof, so they don't know if there is one. But to declare that there isn't one because you don't know about it is ridiculously ignorant. There are proofs. There are piles of proofs. I'm about to show you a very simple one. And then the question is just, how invested are you in your belief? I don't want you to be invested in I don't want you to believe that the earth is spherical. I don't want you to believe that it's flat. I want you to actually understand what you're looking at when you open your eyes looking at the world and be able to prove it. Prove it to yourself and prove it to other people. Now, before I do the actual proof, it's amazing how often flat earthers, they basically use their own ignorance as proof that the world is flat. And I don't mean they think it's flat because they're ignorant. I mean, they will actually use their own ignorance as the proof, because they'll say, but what about this? How do you explain this? How do you explain that thing? What they're saying is, I don't know how to explain this, I don't know how to explain this, I don't know how to explain this, therefore, that's the conclusion. You not knowing how to explain or prove or solve something is not proof that anything is true or false. Well, it's proof that you're ignorant in certain areas, but other than that, it's not proof of anything. And yet that's usually their thing. I'll give an example. There's a video called 200 Proofs That the Earth is Flat, or that it's not spherical. I forget which it is. And it's 200 examples of people who don't understand anything about geometry. A lot of them have to do with the fact that flat earthers don't know what the words down and level mean. They all the way don't know what they mean. If this is the earth, the round earth crazy theory, they think that is down. It's not. Down means towards the center of the planet. So a bunch of their complaints are, well, water always finds its level. It won't stay in a ball. It'll go down. And that's true if you understand what down means. They say, well, the pilots who fly planes, they should have to tip the nose down to make up for the curvature of the earth. No, you don't understand what down means. Well, when you're building a road, you don't have to account for the curves because you don't understand what down means. Down means towards the center of mass of the planet. Level means perpendicular to down. So on a planetary scale, this is level. This is what's level. Yes, water finds its level, and this is the level because down is towards the center of mass. And half of the proofs were just demonstrations that flat earth people don't know what down and level mean. And if you understand, oh yeah, you don't have to change the road because if you keep the road level and that's the center of the earth, it very gradually makes a circle. If you can make a road around the whole freaking world, all of it would register as level and it would make a circle because down is towards the center of mass of the planet. It's not down like this. Same thing with water finding its balance and a bunch of other things like that. But when they spout out these things, how do you explain this? How do you explain that? They're just demonstrating that they don't know how to explain things, which is fine. But to use that as proof of something, I can't explain A and B and C, therefore D is true. That's just crappy logic.